Hi, I just wanted to quickly cram into a 15-minute video how I've been making use of the creator kit that you can use to quickly create a usable Power App without really having to think about some of the cosmetic elements that could be quite time consuming, and you can just focus on the functionality of a specific app. So I just wanted to kind of show you the rhythm I've got into when using the creator kit, because there's a lot of elements, but in the end, I've kind of just ended up focusing on a few of them. So what I tend to do, there absolutely is a template app which you could use as a starting template, which is going to give you this initial screen, and you could take a cut of that and start that way. But what I prefer to do is just open up the template app in edit mode, which I use to copy and paste controls. But above and beyond that, for some of the controls which we'll see in the reference app, you actually get a kind of dummy data set, or it gives you clues as to how you can get it to work if certain things aren't as obvious by just using the reference app. So with me mentioning the reference app, that's the second thing I have open. So I think the concept of this is fantastic. I'm almost thinking you could do this sort of thing as a interactive help guide for your apps above and beyond the creator kit use of it. So this is going to give you a quick blurb as to what the control's for. Some call outs that I like to use this for is there's some nice icons that you get that you can tap into as part of the creator kit. And obviously you're not going to be expected to remember the name of all of them. Obviously, as you start to use them, you will become familiar, but all you have to worry about is having the creator kit reference app open, thinking of a word that loosely is along the lines of the type of icon that you're after. And then you'll go, okay, yeah, I'm happy with that icon, and I need to reference it by using the word money. Other things I like to do on here is one of my favorite elements, certainly when surfacing Dataverse content, is to make use of the details list. Now, when you look at the code equivalent of what it showed graphically, what I tend to do is this is quite good for pulling out the table. Obviously, this is kind of dummy data, but this gives you an idea if it's not quite working in your app as to what you need to supply the various properties. So in particular with the details list, you'll reference a data source and you'll add columns, but you may still be presented with a blank details list. And that's because you have to also define the columns, kind of the styling of it. And this way you can get a clue and go, okay, so I need to have records in a table, X number of records to match the number of columns I want to bring in. I need to put in the column name. I can specify the width here and various other stuff. Other things this line of code isn't purely for the details list control. So what you need to be mindful of is that you'll notice that you've got here, so as canvas component, so that's kind of one set of controls. And I mean, it has got the semicolon there to it, but if you were thinking, oh, I need to copy and paste this somewhere, it is broken down into individual controls. If we go back to the app view, so even like each one of these check boxes, for example, in the search one, but that's good because you can see, to facilitate search, they used this control and these are what they populated the properties with. And you can basically just go through and get a good idea as to what the controls are going to give you before you bring them into the app. So just to quickly go with some of my favorites, what I'm first going to do is insert. I'm going to need to do get more components. it's going to be twofold. In fact, sorry, what I'm going to do, there seems to be a configuration issue in my default environment. So I'm just going to come to the template app, even though I said I don't tend to use this. I'm just going to create a blank screen. And I suppose another good thing about the template app is that it's already got the code components pre-populated. If you were doing the blank app, like I was trying to show here, and get more components, here, if configured correctly, you will see the component library elements. And then also, if enabled in the environment, there'll be a code tab. So if I show you here, code, and this is where you'll see the code components. And the process will be you add it then becomes available to insert, and then underneath code components and library components, you then insert it into the app. So it's kind of a two-stage process. If you click it from the get more components, and you think, why is it not now in the app? It's because it's just made it available for the app to insert, and then you insert it as you do the regular inbuilt components. So coming back under library components, I like to add in the header. Now, the really good thing about header that I like is that it's automatically got built-in back buttons. The cog I tend to use to navigate to maybe an admin configuration page. So on the header point, there's on left button, on back select. So if you toggle that to true, and of course it's going to fight me. Oh, I think it's just a miscommunication with that. Let me try and set it from false to true. And you can use the back button. But I can't show you using the back button because it knows I'm trying to demonstrate this, so it's fighting me. But you toggle on these various options, and then what you tend to then have to do is you've got on left button select, and then you can add in your formula as to what you want to do when that button's selected. So you might on your home screen not have you might just have kind of a company logo, if you will, where the power icon is, and then on subsequent screens you add in the header again just for consistency. Maybe change the title to switch between new, edit item, depending on what you're doing. But in that header, actually have a back button that you could just reference the back function. Another one of my favorite things is the pivot. And I think this is really good for something that can be broken down into sections. And you can basically use the pivot to, I feel like Ross was trying to get the sofa upstairs, pivot. You can use the pivot to basically kind of go show this form when that one's selected, and it can be like a really good way of walking through. You can even kind of have different instances of the pivot selectable items. So you might have an initial screen where you need to enter some details, save it, have that as one up front, and then you basically tell the app that once that's been entered, then light up some other more downstream options. So this is what I mean. It's kind of difficult to see sometimes when you add it in. You've got item 1, item 2, item 3, and you've just got blank items. So this is where I like to go to the reference app. I find the control. I go into the code. I find the table. Apart from I've gone on the wrong one, excuse me. Go to the code. Find this example one. come back into the art, and then I can get a feel for how it's set up. So here I can see we've got, okay, an item key, display name, and then the item icon. So again, this is where we mentioned earlier, where you search for an icon. I might want to do that. I might want to do finance for the key. And then, I don't know, I'll do cost for the display name. And you can see here how you can manipulate this, and it just gives you a head start onto what you can do. Similarly, you'll notice one of them has an item count. In fact, two of them do custom icon color 10. And here you can go, how's it getting that value? Oh, I can specify an item count. And you can have that dynamically do it based on, say, a count rows formula, which is what I've done. So above and beyond that, that can act as your navigation. Now, when you're wanting to do something based on which item's been selected, what you can do, I'll just do it in a label just to demonstrate. You wouldn't really do a label. But if I wanted to do, say, visible when this item key is, you would get the name of the control. So pivot to, I just like to rename and copy. That's how I easily get it. And then you can basically go selected, and then item key, and then if we come out here, you can see that it's changing as we go across. So that can be your pivot, pardon the pun, for other controls to determine what they're going to do or what they're going to show. So if you imagine you've got a header quickly, you've got a nice way of switching between sections almost. And then when you want to get into the meat of showing your content, aside from if I'm using Dataverse, which I'm trying to do more and more, I'll use forms and switch up between the form mode, new, edit, view. Particularly on a home screen, I like to add in the details list. So if I just get under code components, I'm going to add in the details list. And if we add this in, I'm just trying to hurry up because I really want to do this in 15 minutes. And then let's just say, for example, I'll choose the data source as accounts. So this is where it becomes a bit tricky, because I've added accounts and I've got these fields, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, why aren't those fields showing? Now, it is case sensitive in how you specify this. So I'm just going to go to advanced, and what we need to find is column items. And just to give us a head start, I'll come to basic, I'll come to code. I'm going to copy out one entry of this, paste that in there. I'm going to round off the table function, but it's at least valid. And then all I'm going to do now, because like I say, it can be case sensitive for the column names. And even if you look in Dataverse, the case that this wants for it to work won't necessarily match the case that you would see looking at it in Dataverse, which is not helpful. But anyway, so if we expand this, we've got the columns. If you basically just click on it, you want to make use of these field names. That, to me, is the easiest way of doing this without worrying. You just remember to do that, and you don't have to worry about how you figure out the names. So if I do that, although it says and nothing shows, although this is where I find out there's nothing in the table. Let's try name.